Halo pemirsa, apa kabar? Senang sekali saya Berkarier kembali menjumpai Anda, dan kali ini saya akan berbincang bersama seorang diaspora Indonesia profesional yang akan berbincang mengenai perjalanan karir dari person tersebut di beberapa perusahaan-perusahaan global seperti di JP Morgan, kemudian juga di Google dan juga Warner Bros. Langsung saja kita sapa Emilio Woenardi. Hello Emilio, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good,
Thanks
really
for having
good.
me.
Good evening, New York time.
Yes, it's
So right now it's
almost
approaching.
midnight.
Almost midnight, so it is approaching your bedtime, right?
Yes.
Okay, so as I mentioned before to the viewers about your journey in career-wise in some of the global companies such as JP Morgan, Google, and also Warner Bros. And talking about that, so what is your actually your main motivation for pursuing career in finance, cross-border business development from your point of view, of course, or from your journey?
Yeah, thanks for, well, first of all, thank you for having me and happy to answer your question. So I would say ever since I was young, I've always loved numbers. I think my dad has trained me from the very beginning. I remember when we were young in Indonesia, every time we would go eat at a restaurant, we would always try to estimate how much money the restaurant makes. For example, he would look around and see how many people there are in the restaurant, how many tables or chairs there are. And he would say, okay, based on this, I think, this restaurant makes this much amount of money this today. Eventually we would always play this game together every time we went out to eat. And I think that led to my comfort with numbers. So that pushed me to a career in finance at investment banking. So first at JP Morgan, and then after my MBA, I did corporate development and M&A at Warner Brothers, and then later on did financial planning at Stripe. I would say, you know, as I got further into my career, I realized that finance, while it is important, it's not everything. I think I forgot who said it, but I think someone said once finance without strategy is just numbers, and strategy without finance is just dreaming. I think it's really funny, but also very true because you always need strategy and strategic processes such as business development to grow your company, but you also need numbers to back it up. So that and the fact that, I like the excitement of doing deals and negotiation, it really led me to pursue a career in business development, where I am at now, where you really find partnership deals to grow a business.
So talking about career journey from JP Morgan and then to Google and Stripe, industry-wise, it is pretty much different. So can you tell me just a little bit about the way you transition from the banking world, which is that was the JP Morgan experience, to the tech companies such as Stripe and Google? How do you, transition from these industries?
Yeah, good question. I think I've always wanted to work in a large tech company because I honestly believe that tech companies today, at least the ones that I'm really aware of, are changing how we live every day through the solutions, the technologies that they create. So to get my foot in the door to these tech companies, I would say I applied to more finance related roles within these tech companies because that's my background. I worked in a bank, I worked in finance, and that was just an easier transition for me to get into the tech company. And once I spent some time there, I eventually transitioned into a more business development role. I think the transition was actually surprisingly quite smooth. I think it's mostly because, whether you're in a bank or a tech company these days, they're both really, really big companies. So, I've always worked in a large company, so I was used to it. But I would say, there are some differences. For example, in a bank, I felt like a lot of my work required a lot of senior oversight and approvals from my boss, and my boss's boss had to be okay with it. But in tech companies, I feel like I own a lot of the outcome and the performance of my projects directly. So it was really good to have a lot of ownership in my own work. But honestly, it was also quite scary to be accountable for every single part of it. So I think this really led me to learn how to own my own mistakes, take risks, but also learn from others.
The smooth transition, as you mentioned before, was it caused by similarity between the companies that you worked previously, or it's all you, just because you can do that smoothly, transitioning from one industry to another, or is it caused by some similarities that they have?
I think again, large companies are very similar. I think maybe each company has their own culture, but in order to, I would say, apply for or work for a company of a similar size, it's kind of the same transition, I would say. I think a lot of people transition from different companies. I think everyone that I know have worked in companies big or small. It's just always going to take some time. I think the first 3 to 6 months is always a trial period. You will make mistakes, you will say the wrong things, but I think go easy on yourself, and then eventually you'll find your way, you'll find your people in the company, and you'll build trust with your team.
Okay, that's important when you know your potential, and then you're kind of adjusting yourself to what is actually happened in the new company that you work for, and that's going to be really great strategy to make yourself doing the transition smoothly. So from your experience working abroad, how do you see Indonesian values shaping your leadership style?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest Indonesian value would just be leading or working as one team. I think it's similar to the saying of gotong royong, right? Like the idea that whether you're working for yourself or for a company, we always have to do it together, support one another, but also even share each other's mistakes, right, to achieve a common goal. I think even if I were to lead a project in a company, it's not just me, but my team, and we have to always help each other out in always, whether it's like our responsibility is not. So when somebody in the team fails, you also fail. When somebody in the team wins, you also win. So I think this is a very Indonesian concept, and it's a leadership style that at least I try to embody where I work. I would say another Indonesian concept or like a value would be just being nice, being kind. Not that people are not nice everywhere else in the world, but I do think us Indonesians, we always try extra hard to be nice to everyone, especially at work. Even when we have arguments or conflicts, I think that's because it's like our strong culture, like respecting our elders and community, like for social harmony. And so I do think that by creating this like kind, respectful environment, like everyone feels comfortable, we are always able to do better as a team.
Okay, it is interesting that you or we as Indonesian implementing what gotong royong actually is, and being nice. It's just something that we do every day, but turned out it can be our benefit, or it can be quote unquote our power when it comes to having the career journey in global companies such as JP Morgan, Google and etc. So yeah, talking about also gotong royong narratives, it is also had been implemented so far by the global community. It's called collaboration, that is one of the most important thing also, which is we doing it like every day. They're also doing it like every day. So we're kind of having this common ground. So regarding the global strategy and partnership, what are your key principles in negotiating strategic partnerships, especially in international markets with very different cultures and regulation, which is that point is really let's say quite challenging, I guess, for you. Is it also challenging or no?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say, I don't know if you'll like my answer, but I think my core principles in negotiations are very similar across all types of partnerships, whether it's in the US, abroad, or cross-border around the world. I think in any negotiation, no matter what, the first thing is you have to be prepared, right? Like we have to do our homework, figure out in detail, like what you and the partner each want from the deal, and then what are the likely issues and conflicts. You have to prepare different possible negotiation scenarios, different outcomes, and you should also always go into the negotiating table ready with what your bottom line is. Like, what's the minimum that we're going to accept for this deal to be worth it or for us to let go? I think second would be my personal style is always to lay out my worries or concern of the deal upfront. I always believe the first thing you do is to share, hey, this is my biggest issue or my concerns. I think a lot of people think that this can be too vulnerable. You know, this is, but I think it's like a great strategic move to show, like, we're willing to collaborate and be on friendly terms from the start. And in my experience, once we share this concern and our vulnerability, the partner will almost always do the same and share their biggest concerns. And I think only after that, we can build the trust and then create sort of like this short top priority list and then finalize the partnership more quickly. And I think related to that, the last point, I think the concept of both sides have to win, right? I think we have to go into any partnership across different cultures or countries. We have the expectation that creating this deal will be good for both of us. I think if we both want to win, that means each of us will maybe have to lose like a little. So I think figure out, you know, your top 1, 2, 3 things that you want to negotiate, the most important things, and the others you have to be able to compromise.
Okay, it is interesting when you mention we, because when you mention we, because we're talking about our benefits together, not only you know, your own what you call it, goal, but it is also about how to collaborate more to get the common goals, if I may say that. Okay, so as an Indonesian diaspora professional, how do you interpret representation and contribution to Indonesia from abroad?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really important question. I'm really far away from home. You know, I'm in New York right now, and I've been living abroad and working abroad for almost 16, 17 years now. But I'm always proud of my country. I love Indonesia, and I hopefully can contribute in some way, even if it's a little bit. But I think one way is just by being part of a team or company that can expand new technology or innovation into my home country, right? So a lot of industries are being innovated in the US right now, whether it's self-driving cars, AI, or fintech. I think by working abroad and working in these types of companies around the world, I hope that I can help be part of a company that builds these tech solutions around the world and somehow eventually also allow it to expand into Indonesia in the future. I think I would say another thing would just be like increasing Indonesian representation, for example. So again, I'm far from being like the best or great example because there are so many other Indonesians around the world in the diaspora who are doing great things in bigger and better companies. But I just hope that we, as part of the diaspora, you know, by working hard, by increasing our network, meeting new people, and doing our best, we're able to show that us Indonesians are pretty exceptional. You know, we're good people, we're hardworking, we are smart, we take care of each other, and I think most importantly, we're kind people again.
Yeah.
So, you know, I'm just one small person, you know, out of the almost 300 million Indonesians out there. So if I can just help add just a little bit more exposure to Indonesia, I'm already happy.
Sure, sure. Yeah, one thing that actually really happening right now about the image of working in global companies, because it seems like so exclusive. It seems like only, you know, some people can also can only do that. But when it comes to Indonesian as part of the global community, working in a global companies need to be inclusive in the near future. So talking about one of the contribution that maybe as one of the successful diaspora from Indonesia, is there any initiatives or mentoring programs you are involved in to support young Indonesian talents aiming for global careers?
Yeah, so unfortunately, I don't have a specific mentorship program, and I think I need to do better in that. But my advice is always going to be the same. I would say, reach out to your alumni from school. For example, my contact information, my email is always up to date in my high school in Jakarta, as well as my university alumni database. If you reach out to me and you're from my school, and definitely if you're Indonesian, I'm always happy to give advice or share my network to help other Indonesians who are looking to further their global careers. I would say another thing that everyone should do is don't be afraid to cold call or email people in professional networks. Look at LinkedIn, for example, look at the profiles of Indonesians with careers that you really admire or are curious about. Because most of the time when you message an Indonesian, especially if they're living abroad, they're really happy to hear from you and they're really happy to help you out. And then lastly, I think if you have time, you should always try to see if you can find a way to study abroad. Maybe it's just for a few months or a few semesters. I think you'll meet other students around the world, and most importantly, other Indonesian diaspora communities, like especially the student ones like Permias in the US that give additional mentorship and support. That being said, you can always find me on LinkedIn and you can just message me and I'll help you out.
Yeah, an active efforts is really need to be implemented from Indonesian itself, Indonesian youngsters, and also the alumni. As you mentioned before, they are very happy to hear anything from Indonesian youth or young Indonesian to hear what they actually want, especially when it comes to working in global companies. So talking about the message that maybe you can share just a little bit to young Indonesians who aspire to follow your path to the working in a global industry.
I think you should do it. I think you can, and I would say you don't always have to immediately look for global careers outside of Indonesia. I would say first start local. So try to find a company or an organization in Indonesia that is in an industry that you like, whether it's retail, food, finance, tech, or real estate. But if you can also find a global company that has local Indonesian operations or offices, there's so many, right? Unilever, P&G, all of that, especially because how important Indonesia is to the global market. But next, I think you have to build your expertise in these companies. So if you're working in an Indonesian office, work really hard to know your function within that company, whether you're doing finance, HR, marketing, or sales. Perform really well, build trust with your leaders, and build strong relationships with people in your organization. And then lastly, it's really important, is ask for opportunities. So I think we need to be more confident to ask for a global experience abroad. A lot of these companies have offices and mobility options around the world, but you need to be proactive in terms of looking for these opportunities, but also asking your boss or asking your team about it. I think it sounds really simple and cheesy, but it's true. If you don't ask, you really don't get it. So please ask.
Yeah. That's quite simple, but sometimes we need to exercise that. Like asking the thing that you should ask, just ask, from that we can see what will happen in the future. Okay, Emilio, I know this is outside the question list that already shared to you before, but I really want to know about your opinion towards the narrative that had been implemented by the government of South Korea. Think local, go global. Is it can be implemented also in Indonesia as a part of the global community? What do you think about that?
I think that's very true. I think when I think about South Korea, you said think local, go global. The first thing I think about is Korean culture, like K-pop, and it's now a global phenomenon, right? And I think, they really value it and really think about how they want to market, but also entrench a lot of their distinctly Korean culture across the Korean diaspora around the world at first, but then now non-Koreans around the world are also loving that culture. I think it's very possible and something that is exciting for Indonesia to do that too. I think, we are the fourth largest country in the world. You know, as I said before, we are kind people, we're creative. A lot of people know about us, and we have the opportunity to really showcase the world that something can be started in Indonesia and then eventually, you know, be celebrated around the other parts of the world. I don't know if I can name specific examples on live on air, but I think there are a lot of things in Indonesia that can be made, you know, global.
Yeah, it is interesting. Could be one of the things that we can also adopt, so we can go global, even though we're kind of thinking locally. Okay, lastly, this is going to be the last question. Is there any big dream of you that you want to realize for both the world and Indonesia through your current global role?
Yeah, I think my personal wish in the future, and again, this is my own ambition, I would say, not, you know, related to the companies that I work for, but I think is to make sure that everyone has access to new technologies that improve their day-to-day lives. So what I mean by that is, you know, a lot of useful apps and technology today that we use, they're accessed through our phones, right? So in Indonesia, for example, apps like Gojek, Grab, Tokped, you know, Shopee, Halodoc, they're all so important to our day-to-day lives, and where are they accessed from? Our phone, right? So what I want is to make it a lot more affordable for everyone to buy these phones through better like consumer financing. That's my background. You know, I was in a bank, I work in financing, you know, financial processing companies like Stripe. And I think it would be great to create something eventually that makes it easy for everyone to find not only different ways, but also different sources of financing for our product in one place. So they don't have to go to different stores, you know, different websites, or even different banks to find the best deals. Right? And of course, I know that this is an idea and probably needs a lot more thinking, and maybe someone's already doing it and doing it really well. But I think overall in the future, I want to make sure that everyone, no matter who you are, how old you are, where you, how much money you make, can afford access to this kind of technology, and hopefully globally and also in Indonesia.
Interesting. Once again, to make the access more inclusive, that is the most important thing that we need to do and share to the Indonesian people or Indonesian youngsters, so they can get great access or open access to the you know, global companies such as the experience or the path that you're having right now. Emilio, it's really great to talk to you right now. Sorry for delaying your bedtime.
No, it's okay. Thank you.
Yeah, hopefully that we can have another chit chat later on another time. Thank you very much. See you very soon, Emilio.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you soon. Bye.
Baik, selamat malam waktu New York. Dan pemirsa, demikian tadi perbincangan saya bersama Emilio Woenardi, Diaspora Profesional Indonesia, dan saya Berkarier undur diri. Terima kasih. Sampai jumpa.